As soon as I open it, roaches. To where when I walked in the house,
did you scream?
You don't know my life, bro.
Welcome back to Econix Talks, guys.
When I pop up, everybody gonna be like, man, overnight success.
Lifestyle topics, entrepreneurship, and investing.
Are you serious about this? Because if you are, then I'm willing to back the business.
We want to inform you, educate you, and empower you so that you can maximize your life. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? I want to give a huge shout out to all the new supporters that have joined us this year, and I can never forget my day one, so shout out to y'all too. As most of you guys know, running an independent podcast takes a ton of time and energy. Now, if you ever benefited from an episode of this show or mini episodes and you'd like to support, you can do that by buying us a coffee. You can reach that by the support link in the show notes, or if you're following me or Econix on Instagram, it'll be in the link in the bio. And this will be used to cover any expenses that come with the show. I appreciate everything you guys have done, and this has been such a fulfilling year. Now, on to this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Econix Talks, guys. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Albert Lee, and he is the president and CEO of the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. How you doing?
Good, Joshua.
That's what's up, man. Thank you so much for having us or joining us today. So we're going to get right into it. Mm-hmm. So first of all, just introduce yourself. Tell us kind of what you do, what your thing is, and we'll get right into it. We'll go from there.
So I'm the president of Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation. We are a 36, almost 37-year-old lending organization that also provides technical assistance. So we focus primarily on community-based lending to Black-owned businesses. And that's what we've done since our inception. We started out as part of a state funded program many years ago. And several years ago, we kind of separated from that program and we became a community development entity that focuses on making loans and getting capital in the hands of Black-owned businesses and providing the technical assistance.
Okay.
So that's what we do day in and day out.
Okay, cool. Just a quick follow-up. So when you say technical assistance, what does that look like?
So one of the things we cannot do, because we're also a lender, is we cannot help you write or prepare a business plan. However, if you needed to find out or get questions answered about finance, okay, we can talk to you about those things and we can provide help. One of the things we also put together about 6 years ago is we put together a 15-week, 2-hour a week curriculum around helping entrepreneurs learn some of the critical aspects of running and owning a business. So we call that program our Catch program.
Oh, wow.
And so we've had about 300 people come through that program over that time frame. And so we've had people, our most recent graduation that we had in October, one of the things I love most, we had one of our students had been in business for 20 years as an anesthesiologist.
Wow.
Okay, an accomplished anesthesiologist, but she's going into a different phase of business and felt she needed to learn some aspects about managing her business. And one of the things she said at the graduation was that she said, I've gotten all kinds of education, obviously being a physician. She said, but this right here to me was almost better than getting an MBA because it was very practical. So we started that so that we could teach people some of the aspects that they needed to know about running their business that they may not have learned or nobody may have turned them on to. And so in that, we provide technical assistance, but we also do one-on-one. Yeah. So you say, hey, I need a loan. We want to sit down and talk to someone to help us look at our financial statements and things like that, and we can provide that.
See, that's important, man, because I'll tell you this, when it comes to Black businesses, a lot of people give us a lot of flack for not having the most, a lot of business acumen. Yeah. But people got to realize, like, we're just now in the United States really owning businesses at a high rate. And even still, we don't have a lot of Black business owners that are really doing business. A lot of people got LLC, but I mean, like, actually, hiring folks.
That's right.
And so when you look at that, what do you think has been like the shift or the change in that? Well, what's been a shift in either policy or whatever that's allowed us to kind of start more businesses and be more successful?
Well, I'm going to push back on that historical perspective a little bit, Joshua, and say, believe it or not, Black people were very entrepreneurial because coming out of slavery, people weren't hiring us in normal positions. So most of what you had to do was learn how to do something on your own. Now, obviously, a lot of people went into farming kind of by default because that's what they had done down south and so on and so forth. But even becoming a farmer, for those that were not doing tenant farming or sharecropping, they had to learn how to manage and run a farm and understand business. And then coming out of that and coming into the early 20th century, we see that there were a lot more business people. Like, we love to talk about Black Wall Street now that happened in Tulsa. Yeah. But if you go to places like Durham, Durham calls themselves having the first Black Wall Street. And I might be inclined to believe that given the number of financial institutions that were in that area of Durham. So when I think in terms of us and entrepreneurship, we've had it for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And in many regards, it appeared to me we went backwards.
We did.
We went backwards.
I don't think that's by our own. I think some of it's by our own doing, but I can't, I don't want to get on the whole race thing, but we already know what's up. Yeah. When it comes to, laws, gentrification, redlining, it's tons of, even in the banking industry.
Other opportunities opened up.
Right.
That I think siphoned off people doing that. For instance, you had people from the South. If you didn't want to go into farming, then you started looking at opportunities up north or either up in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And so people started getting jobs, and those jobs provided things that perhaps entrepreneurship didn't. But what I'm saying is, from the standpoint of us being entrepreneurial, we are very entrepreneurial. Yeah. But to your point about our ability to scale, that's where some of the systemic issues came in, right? Okay. And it always appeared just as we as Black business owners were beginning to thrive, things would change. The landscape would change, right?
That's what I'm
That's the critical part that you're talking about. So during Reconstruction, when things were moving in a positive direction, what happened? They stopped Reconstruction and Jim Crow came in. And then that's when you started seeing a lot of things like redlining. You started seeing them undermine a lot of our communities when it comes to the things we were doing from an entrepreneurial perspective. So that spirit in us, to me, has never left. Right. I think we had to learn in this new economy as we came into the 20th century and now in the 21st century, how do we find our place and continue to grow? Right. And, being a B student, a business student, and majoring in business economics at Florida, I came out around the time.
Shout out to university. Let them know.
Absolutely. When I remember Reginald Lewis, and there was a book he wrote, Good Guys, We're Black. And Reg Lewis was the first Black person to take down $1 billion deal. Back in the day, right? Wow. And that, for us, coming out of business school, those of us in the 80s, man, we were like, Reg Lewis kind of set the trend, because that's at the time when there was a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on. That's when you had these new guys coming in, taking out large companies and stuff and things like that. And for a brother to be involved in that, that was an awesome thing. So a lot of brothers then at that point started trying to figure out how they could get into investment banking. I ended up going into commercial banking.
Can you explain the difference just for people?
So the difference in commercial banking is what we call Main Street banking. Okay, that's your typical bank that you see, the normal things that we do, take deposits, make loans, and so on and so forth. Investment banking is more boutique in that it is focused on helping companies get usually larger sums of money and helping those companies go public or providing equity versus us at a traditional commercial bank. We're doing debt. We're loaning money. And back then, the majority way that most companies got their funds was from a commercial bank. So I was recruited by a bank that was based here in Tampa, and I brought back, and that's where I learned how to do financial analysis and so on and so forth. At that time, we had to be trained, and they hired you, they trained you, then you had to compete to get in a department. And then once you got into that department, you had to compete to keep your job. And I was fortunate enough to get in the commercial credit department.
So you got that dog in?
Underwriting. Yeah, man, absolutely. And being one of the only brothers at the time in the credit department, that had its challenges too, but you don't let those things stand in your way.
Can you speak to that? Because I think that's important, because, even though I'm a little bit younger than you, I still dealt with the issue of being Black in corporate America. Right. So obviously back then was a lot different, a lot less rules, you could get away with a lot more. So can you speak to that from just a personal experience, how you were able to kind of navigate those challenges?
It was, again, you wake up, but being black is not new, okay? I was born black. As you can see by the little fro I still have left.
Hey, you can grow one. You can grow one. You're doing better than me.
but it's apparent that I'm black. But you don't let that stand in the way. My thing was for me trying to find what's the way to grow in the bank? At that time, you're young. As the old fellas used to say to us, you're full of piss and vinegar, right? Mm-hmm. So, you think you can take on the world. As far as I was concerned, I didn't see why I couldn't be the CEO and why I couldn't end up being one of these guys that was, just like the people I read about and saw. But then you hit the real world, and not only because of race, but just by sheer competition. When they recruited us, right? And I say us, I came in a class, I think I had about 10 individuals. In my class, I think I was the only African-American in my class, the group that was hired and recruited at the time. And what we were all sold on the fact that, hey, one day we can see all of you all, hey, you can be the president of the bank. Well, there's only one spot. And there's a whole lot of people that's already below the current president. Right. So, but at the time, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And so you have to find your way. And so that part I appreciated. I appreciated the opportunity. And a lot of it wasn't necessarily race-based. A lot of it was just competition. However, where you run into the race piece is you're somewhat unique because in any given department down there at headquarters, I would walk in and there were no black people. Okay. Now, during that time, banks were making a concerted effort to try to recruit and get more blacks into their training programs and ultimately get them into management and so on and so forth. We had an organization called National Association of Urban Bankers. We called our local chapter Tampa Bay Bankers Association. And that was a group of black bankers, right, that helped other bankers kind of integrate into banking. So if there were opportunities at other banks, they would sit there and let you know, and then they would introduce you to people and things like that. So we found our own way to kind of help ourselves navigate.
We pretty much created our own onboarding system, like we always do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was supported by the banks themselves. The banks supported it. And, it got to one point where they were like, wait a minute. We sit here and get you guys over here. The next thing I know, somebody in you all's group is helping y'all get a job somewhere else, So it was very successful in that sense. But the racial aspects were there, not just from internal, but when you're going out calling on customers. Okay, because most clients were used to dealing with who? White bankers. Right. And so that in and of itself was a dynamic. And I was confronted a couple of times directly with people who said, you're not going to handle my money.
Crazy.
You're not going to. One guy did it in the middle of the lobby at our main office downtown. He said, no black man is going to handle my money. And so I don't know if any of my white colleagues ever had to deal with the fact that a black person or Hispanic person said, no white person is going to deal with my money.
Were you like, how did that make you feel? Were you like offended? Were you like, you tripping? Because I've experienced similar things. Yeah. And you deal with customers, you deal with people, the public, you see all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of things.
And in banking, everybody has to have money. Everybody got to use a bank. Yeah. So how was that experience?
It was, for me, it was shocking when he said it. Okay. Now, I was not surprised. And his reason for being upset was because I closed his counter. I was returning his checks because he owned a small business. I think it was a towing business. And he had not responded. His account was overdrawn. And every effort we had made to reach him to tell him he needed to come in and put some money in the bank, he ignored it until I shut his account down and his check started going back. And his customers were calling him saying they did. So he came into the bank, and when he was one of those guys, he was kind of bad news with everybody. Yeah. But particularly when he saw it was me, he went off. What he didn't do is jump across the desk, though. Right. Okay. Now that would have been a whole different situation, and I think he understood that part, right? But one of the other young ladies that was in the office, who was an officer in the bank at the time, she heard it and she came over and she told me, "You won't talk that way. Right. Now if you need help, you come over here and I'll help you." I said, "No, I'll help him. No, I'm not. You're not going to do anything for me." So she went ahead and took care of it. And then it was interesting because my white colleagues felt it was their responsibility to apologize for him. And like I told them, that's him. Right. It's just like I don't have to apologize for everything every black person does. It's not your job to apologize for what the white person does. But they felt they had to console me and make me feel better. And tell me, everybody's not like that. Look, I understand. Mm-hmm. And so from that standpoint, though, Joshua, that kind of stuff doesn't throw me, man. It's we've seen it before. You can't worry about it. You can't let it affect you and stop you from moving forward. So I have to say my banking career was very good for me. And I enjoyed banking. And the whole point is that's what set me up to learn the things that I learned about finance.
And so that put a pin in that. So you graduated from FAM, you got into the banking industry, but then you decided, hey, I want my own business. Yeah. So then you went and did a dry cleaning business. So I want to talk about that because that's pretty dope what you were able to accomplish.
It wasn't quite a straight line like that.
That's fine. That's fine.
It wasn't. It kind of came out of necessity and opportunity. Being in banking, one of the beautiful things about it is you get a chance to meet a lot of people, especially on the side of the bank I was on. I was trained in all aspects of the bank, both retail, commercial, and operations. Ultimately chose the corporate side of the bank. And then eventually went over on the retail side of the bank. But on the corporate side of the bank, as a lender, once I became a commercial lender, you have your portfolio and you have clients that you're calling on, and you get involved in a lot of things by virtue of you being a lender. People want you involved, and then things you need to do in order for you to be able to meet clients. And one of the clients I met was through one of the branch managers, and this person became my client, and we loaned him money. And we had a good relationship, and he was willing to talk to me about entrepreneurship. And he asked me a question one time. He said, "Have you ever considered owning your own business?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, I've thought about it, but I've never done it." He said, "What about the dry cleaning business?" And I said, "Well, no, I never specifically thought about dry cleaning." And so from that point, I started looking at dry cleaning a little bit more, right? And he had done extremely well. And dry cleaning at that time was one of the top 5 businesses that you could become a millionaire, okay?
And so here's the thing I'll say about our community. Mm-hmm. We want to do the boutiques. We want to do beauty. We want to do all these different, industries that aren't sexy. That are sexy. Yeah. So dry cleaning ain't the sexiest industry, but like you said, it's one of the most scalable businesses. Industry. It's necessary. Yeah. So when you're choosing a business and you're looking at scalability, how did that impact your decision making to get into that industry?
So believe it or not, even though I had all that background, and because I had been in banking about 9 years before I actually got into the dry cleaning business, and even with all of that, because I had never really run a business day to day. I've seen my dad run one. I saw my grandfather, but I had never, had a business per se. For me, everything was kind of new in that sense. All of the stuff I learned at the bank about financial analysis, it's kind of like that playbook got thrown out of the window when it came to understanding how to run a business day to day. Yeah. And many of the things that I advised against as a banker, I found myself doing as a business owner, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of fell into the opportunity. I literally left the bank one day and started in the dry cleaning like that following week, and didn't write a business plan, didn't do any of those things. My partner, and I call him my mentor, he pretty much said, "Hey, look, if you decide to do this, I'll support you in any way I can, including giving you my operating manual. I'll walk you through the process. I'll show you what you need to do, and you can partner with me." And so we did. So we set up a partnership, and he had partners as well. He had some wealthy individuals that supported his business that got him started 20 years before. And so for that, in that sense, I had someone that kind of ushered me in, helping me find locations to lease, helping me understand the lease, what you don't want in them, what you do want to have in the lease.
Where are some of those things?
So, for instance, my first location for my first store, I leased the space, but I was going to have to do build out. Mm. Okay. So even negotiating that and understanding what that meant. Okay. What is my responsibility for that build out? Right. Looking at the cost, what does it take to build out this space? And how do I negotiate the lease to get the landlord to pick up some of that cost? Okay. So in this case, because this was kind of mature space and it was a area that was heavily trafficked, had anchor stores and things like that, they didn't have to give a whole lot. But what we were able to negotiate was 3 months free rent. Hey. Rent was roughly $2,800 a month when you look at CAM and everything, right? Mm-hmm. And sales tax. It was roughly $2,800 a month. All right. But what it also did, that 3 months free gave me time to complete the build out. Yes. Okay. Before I had to start paying rent. because during the build out period, there's no customers coming in. So if I had to pay rent from month one, I'd have been paying rent plus trying to get this build out done. So it gave me a chance. We got the build out done in roughly about a month and a half, 2 months. So I had roughly about a full month to generate revenue without having to pay rent. So something that simple. And when we got ready to do the build out, one of the things that my mentor was able to do, he said, look, man, we're going to have to get this thing started. If we go through this whole permitting process, that can take a while. So we got the contractor. The contractor said, here's how we're going to do it. So we're going to do this guerrilla style. We're going to get the permits. But in the meantime, we're going to go to work. And so we put up paper to the windows, and in the evening, he came in after 5 when the inspectors and code enforcement people and all those folks are off. And guess what he did? He started going to work. So by the time we got the permits, we were halfway. We were halfway done. We had the order counters and all of that. So all those are things I was not used to. And so it was great having a mentor that walked me through all of that and fronted me some of the money. He also did the processing of my clothes and allowed me to run a cab until I got my flow started, right? So again, I tell people to look for mentors. Now, you say, why would he mentor someone coming into the same business that could potentially be a competitor? We did agree not to compete against each other, and we operated in different markets. So we never competed head to head. But oftentimes, other entrepreneurs, especially ones that have gone through and become successful, they want to help. They don't have a problem giving you the benefit of their experience.
They're not scared of the competition, right?
They're not afraid of the competition.
They've already beat out so many people, or they know how hard it is. And even for me, I've been in business for myself for a couple of years, and now I'm like, after I've been through a couple of cycles, I've been through some stuff, ups and downs, I'm like, this ain't cut out. Everybody not cut out for this. So you see the new person, it's like, they're not gonna make it.
Nope.
They're not gonna make it.
Nope.
And then you have other people, they got some grit. They might be worthwhile. And so I was actually gonna ask you that, because even for me, like not having mentors, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have somebody to kind of help me navigate some of the problems that I've faced in business and personal life. So when you talk about mentorship from your industry, how did that play a role in your mentoring people, and obviously the gentleman that helped you scale your own business?
So, the mentorship can come in different forms. Sometimes it's just people, it may not be a conversation that you have all the time. Okay. It's just, hey, if I need to pick up the phone and bounce something off somebody that I trust, I think is going to give me the benefit of good information. Then having that person there. And it could come in the form of like what I had, where somebody, he's like, look, you tell me how you need me to help you, whether that's monetarily, whether that's just with information or access. Okay. And I had all three. Okay. I had all of it. So I was very fortunate in that regard. And it still didn't make it easy. I still had to do all the work.
You had to work.
I had to.
They gave you he said he gave you the playbook, but you still had to run the play.
You got to make it happen. And that was it. That meant first thing he wanted to see was commitment, because I was a banker. So the first thing he questioned is he going to have the grit to really want to go from wearing nice suits, okay, and getting out here and getting dirty? Because the dry cleaning, you're dealing with people dirty clothes. All right. So I had to surrender wearing suits to wearing regular clothes, jeans or whatever, and going around picking up clothes, learning how to sort. I had to go everything from how to sort shirts and things like that, what we call the laundry side. And I had to learn the dry cleaning side all at the same time while I'm trying to start the business as well. And
that's like, man, people who listening. So that means he had to learn on the job.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And you had to figure out financials and make sure you had enough for rent. That people they underestimate how hard that is and how difficult of a challenge that is, because you have to learn.
You got to learn.
And it's just some things you just don't know.
So one of the things he said, I tell you what, if you're serious about doing this, he said, when you leave the bank, if you want to come work for me, he said, I'll let you work for me and I'll train you at the same time. He said, now, you're going to have to be committed, because you're not a regular employee. You're not coming here to work for me. You're coming here to learn this business. So he said, your level of commitment is going to have to be different. He's very upfront, and I love that about him. He was very frank. And he said, look, that means you're going to have to be there before all the employees, and you're going to have to stay after the employees. Then you're going to have to go to the stores and learn what it takes to run a store. So I had to be at his place of business. His plant started. His general manager and plant manager got there at 5:30 in the morning, every morning, except Sundays. And he said, you need to be there when he fires up the boiler so you can learn. He said, you ever fired up a boiler? No. He said, you need to learn how to fire up a boiler. That's what runs everything in the plant. You got to learn how to do that. You need to stay till everything is done because we have to do what we call blow down the boiler, right? He said, you need to learn what that looks like, and you got to learn how to shut down the plant. All the things that need to be shut down and how we prep for the next day to get ready to go at 5:30. Then he said, you'll have just enough time to get to a store when all the customers start coming to pick up the clothes, right? So I had to go and drive his truck and deliver because I had to learn what happens when you drop clothes off. And I know I learned when you drop clothes off, you pick up any clothes that have been dropped off so you can get them back to the plant, get them set for the next day, or clean as many of them that day while you still have your people, at the plant. And so it was that whole process. All that stuff was foreign to me. I'd never done that, right? And that's where I said understanding finances was one aspect. Operating the business, that's a whole different aspect, you see. Yep. So now I understood better when I had clients that used to say, man, you guys don't know anything about running a business. They used to tell us that. Yeah. But what we did know, we knew how to make loans. And because we had the purse string, they still had to
deal with y'all.
They still got to deal with us. Because if you want this money, you got to give us what it is we needed. Right. So and our world revolves around financials, much to the same as it is now. Okay. But having that experience, having gone through that, having to deal with that, I now can empathize better with entrepreneurs. I understand a lot of the travails that they're going through, right? At the same time, I have to sit there and say, okay, that's great. And I do understand that. But on this side of it, on the finance side of it, if you want us to be in a position to help you, these are the things you're going to have to do. Right. Okay. Right. But I certainly have a much better appreciation, and it made me a better banker. Ultimately, when I went back into banking some years later, it made me a much better banker. Right. Because you had that experience on the outside that you was like, okay, that's right. I see where you're lacking as a business owner and on the financial side. So here's what you need to do here, and here's what you need to do there. Absolutely. Now, so you didn't just stop at one location. You started to scale. You started to really build this thing out. So how did that process look? So now you know what you're doing. That was painful. Okay. Talk about the pain. And no, I don't know. I know I didn't know what I was doing. And that's the other part. And so one of the things I learned that's critical about scaling a business, everybody wants to grow because people think growth means more revenue, right? Right. And that is very true. Okay. However, you have to be prepared to grow. Mm-hmm. And what that means is putting things in place to support the growth that you're going to have. Okay. So in my case, if you want to go from one location to a second location, you first need to have a location that's stabilized. Right. Because you're not going to be able to spend as much time at that location any longer. Okay. You're going to have things that are relatively stabilized because you're going to be absent because you're busy, scouting another location. And then if you're able to secure that location, you've now got to do the same thing you had to do before. Yeah. You got to build it out. You got to supervise all of that and so on and so forth, right? So all of that's taking you away. Well, fortunately, I had a mentor that could walk me through it. The problem was he was not coming over there physically getting involved in my business. Yeah. So when there were issues with employees that slowed me down where I couldn't be over here because I had to spend all day at the plant because somebody didn't show up or somebody quit or whatever it was, that was something I had to fight through. Yeah. Those are pains I had to deal with. And those can be costly because now it's time, okay? So it extends the time, and in every case, they don't necessarily give you free rent. In some places, it's like, look, if you want the location, here's the deal. Because they might have the leverage. Because they might have 5 other people that want that same space. Now, I also would tell you this, and I tell some of our clients this when I'm teaching them about leases. Almost everybody that's leasing space to you, right? Whether it's a realtor, or a property manager, or whatever, is going to tell you, I got other people that's interested in this space, okay? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to lease space. So they don't want you sitting on the fence forever. They want to get the space leased. So they're going to tell you, hey, I talked to a person last week who's interested. Well, that may or may not be true. You can talk to a person, but are they ready to sign? Have they signed a letter of intent? No, they haven't. Right. Okay. So in essence, what they're trying to do is force you to make a decision, and sometimes make that decision quicker than you're prepared to make it. Mm-hmm. A lease, folks, is a contract. Yeah. Once you execute it, that landlord, that property manager has every expectation that you're going to fulfill the agreement that you just signed for.
Right.
As such, if you've not gotten your financing in order, if you don't know the next step that you're going to do once you get the keys to this space, you could find yourself having to pay rent in a month, and you've done nothing to get the space ready to start generating revenue to offset that rent.
Yep.
That's costly. Okay, that's costly.
Rent ain't cheap.
And rent's not cheap. And if you've not gotten a loan to support you opening that new location, okay, you're still trying to go and get a loan. You still got that process you got to deal with. There's no guarantee you're going to get the loan.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times people have been disappointed because they've signed a lease, the clock is ticking, and their loan isn't successful, and they don't know what else they're going to do. And then if you don't pay the rent, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to shut down. They're going to get the keys back, and you're still going to be responsible for the balance of that lease.
Right.
You see, and you've lost your deposit, you've lost your first month's rent, and any additional rent that you paid.
Because people don't realize commercial loans are different. Commercial real estate is not like a mortgage. You get a multifamily home. No. These leases. Or if you're leasing out a rent, we rent for 1 year. You got to re-up or re-sign your lease. But commercial lending or commercial leases, it's 10 years, 5 years, 7 years. So you're really stuck in those contracts. It's not something that it's finding that location and you got to commit. And I think people that aren't in that space have never dealt with that. It could be a lot because you end up biting off more than you can chew.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I know we can't build a whole story in one day. But I would just suffice it to say there are a lot of things that entrepreneurs need to know. And many of those lessons and things that they learn, they're going to learn on their own. And you just kind of have to. And hopefully, the mistakes won't take you out. Okay. At that point, the mistakes didn't take me out. But that's, again, because I had a decent backstop, right? And I don't want to pretend I was totally ignorant about how those things work. I was fortunate to have been in banking where I've seen a lot of stuff. So I knew how to negotiate. I knew how to read leases and things like that. So I did have those advantages. I understood how to set up my banking accounts and so on and so forth. So those are things where I did have an advantage. And even with all of those advantages, it was still very, very difficult, is my point. Yep. And so I certainly can appreciate when people start from scratch and want to fulfill their dream of owning a business. And all of that's great. All we say is, look, take some time to figure out how to do it. You want to grow it fast. I get that. You want to go from one location to 2 locations. There's nothing wrong. We need more businesses that can scale. I ended up, I think, having about 17 employees. Had I stayed with one location, I would have had far less employees, right? Right. Now, but every additional employee adds an additional burden. That's leadership. Okay, it adds an additional burden. That's another person whose issues you're taking on. Yep. Because in a small business, you're almost like family. There's no totally separating your business from their business, right? They're going to bring their problems to work. They're going to share it with their coworkers. Yep. They're going to sometimes ask you to do things that they couldn't ask if they were working in a large corporate environment. You may have to loan that person money. You may have to take them home from work. You might have to go pick them up from work. To bring them to work. So all of these are things that, as an entrepreneur, you have to start. You have to make decisions, and it can impact the things that you do for your business, but those are decisions you have to make. Okay. And so there are a lot of facets that, we can talk about. And that's why, I say it's worth people taking the time to find folks who have gone where they want to go and sit down and have a conversation. And it's not that a person has had to do things exactly the way you're trying to do it to give you information, but them sharing their experience can help give you ideas about the way you can deal with certain things that you have to deal with. Right. So, and again, part of what we offer is the opportunity to come in and have a conversation with us. I don't charge for that. We don't charge for that. I can't spend 2 hours with every client, but if whatever that time takes to try to get them where they need to be, we want to be able to do that. Right. And then again, one of the first things I try to do, if I see that this person can benefit from our catch class, I'm going to try and get them in that catch class. Okay. The catch class, they pay $100 up front. So far, what we've done, each of our catch classes, we refund that $100. If you finish the class, we refund you that $100. Now, if you drop out of the class, you don't get the $100 back. So because there's a lot of money goes into setting up that class, 15 weeks, 2 hours a week, and we pay the individuals to teach you that information for each of those classes. We bring in professionals that we pay to teach you. They're not volunteers, okay? Some of those classes I teach, if we're talking about maybe cash flow or pricing or something like that, But even my time is worth money, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but we teach very few of the classes, relatively speaking. We pay those folks. So if they show up and you don't show up, I got to pay them.
Right.
We got to pay for rent for the location. Sometimes we're able to find places that will partner with us and let us have space for free. But a lot of times we have to be prepared to pay rent. We also feed you each class. Why? Because I had to remove excuses. Well, I had to go home and fix dinner. I had to go home and get something to eat. I had to stop and grab something. No, you come, we're going to have food for you. Mm-hmm. And we usually deal with the caterers and people that's in our circle. Yep. So they get some of that money as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so your responsibility is to show up and learn what it is we have to teach you, and then go out and use that information to grow your business. That's awesome. And that's what it's all about.
How long has that program been around?
It's been around, I think we are going into what year is this? 2024. We're going into our 7th year of having that program.
So can you share some success stories? I want to get back. Now, we're going to get back to your business because you ended up selling it and doing that.
Yeah.
But what are some of your success stories that you've seen personally come through the Catch program and did their thing?
I guess one that immediately jumps to mind, there's a few, but Livio's. Livio's she's doing awesome right now. Started off with her catering business. She's doing an awesome job, and the business is growing. I think at one of our recent events, she said that they had crested over $3 million in revenue.
Wow!
So the company has grown tremendously. And then Renee Edwards with the Saturday morning shops over in St. Petersburg, because the Catch program started in St. Petersburg. And Renee she came through our Catch program, and she used to have a scrub that she developed. And so through the program and partnerships with some of the folks that were working with us at the time, they were able to get her in. She was the first Black woman to get her product in the St. Petersburg Chamber store over in downtown. And so they had a nice little ribbon cutting for that. And that led her to want to learn and get more involved in entrepreneurship. She saw a deficit in a lot of business owners not having a place to kind of preview their product and sell their product. And so she started that Saturday morning shop in partnership with with Tropicana Field over there. And so those are two that I would highlight immediately, but we've had a number of them that have gone on and done that thing. Now, what I have not done a good job of, because we do need to do better ourselves. I mean, we constantly need to improve our process, and we do. Following up and documenting what they've done, okay? We need to do a better job of that. We got people out there doing things not so we can take credit for it, but so that we can say, hey, look at what you can do. Okay, look at what you can do. This person came through, they learned some basic rudimental things. They had to, each one of those folks I just named had to go and learn other things. They went through other programs as well. So it wasn't like they just came through catching everything clicked. But what it is it's a catalyst, okay? It's a catalyst for you to go out and learn the things. Like I said, the program is not designed to help you write a business plan. So even after that, if you've not written a business plan, you still need to do that. But those things you're going to learn are going to be key to helping you understand why that business plan is important and how those elements fit into that business plan. And one of the things I find, Josh, that for our businesses, and times have changed, even though I started off saying that we have a history of entrepreneurship, times have changed. The way you access money, the way you access customers, all of those things have changed. And so as entrepreneurs now, we need to be finding out how to operate our businesses now in the here economy, right? I don't embrace technology as much as I should.
I was going to ask you that.
Social media and things like that. I'm not super familiar with it, but I'm recognizing that we're missing out on opportunities. Doing this podcast, that's something I don't typically do. But
I appreciate it.
No. And I appreciate your background, getting to know more about your background and everything. And I think there can be a good synergistic relationship with that, right? And so I think one of the things we have to do is the more you get involved in the entrepreneur ecosystem, the more you see success and what's happening, and the more it pushes you. And one of the things I am encouraged about, I see a lot more entrepreneurship in Tampa and St. Petersburg and in our surrounding markets than I did in previous years. Okay. I do just want those companies. There are a lot of suspects.
Right, of course.
There are a lot of suspects. And what I mean by that is people who say that they got a business and
they play
carry
business.
a card. They play business.
Yeah,
okay. Then when you sit down and start getting to the brass tacks, okay, how much revenue you're generating?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is this how you make your living? And then you find out, no, they're doing, you know, I see people all the time got 5 businesses. Oh, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this.
Oh my God.
I'm not knocking it. If between those 5 you generate enough to pay your bills, okay, fine. However, let's find one good one, or maybe 2 good ones that we can grow. That can get. Trust me, it's going to reduce your headache.
You sound like me, man.
It's going to reduce your headache, you know, because I'm telling you what we think as a lender or even as a banker. What we think when you come in and you say, "Well, I got 5 businesses. Okay, I got this, I got this, I got this." All right. Well, if those are all individual businesses, those individual tax returns you're supposed to be filing, those individual financial statements you need to be keeping, individual bank accounts you've got to be managing, right? And you got to be managing individual books. And in most cases, they're doing none of that.
None of it.
They're running it all through the same business, and it's intermingled. And if you ask them, well, how do you make the predominant portion of your money? They can't really tell you. It's all going into the same bank account. They're writing checks out of this. They're using debit cards out of that. And it's a mess. So when they come to make money, they know how to make money. They don't know how to manage it and handle it.
Yeah.
And so now when you start talking about scaling, think like this. I don't know you, and you're coming to ask me for money. Yes, we're in the business of providing capital, just like at the bank. We make loans, but I don't know you. But you're coming to me, and, you know, I got a little bit of background in this, and I'm looking at your situation, and all I see is a headache, okay? Okay, there's no clear way for me to document your cash flow, okay? I don't really know exactly how you make the predominant portion of your income, so I don't know how sustainable that is, but you want me to loan you money, okay? Where are the assets? Which company owns the assets? Okay, you got 5 different companies, but this one owns the building, this one owns this one. Okay, you know, for us, it makes it more difficult for us to figure out and get our arms around how it is you make money so that we can know how we can expect to be repaid. People don't know those things. Why? Because they're not familiar with the process. Okay, those are the things we can bring to light. So now you know that before you go sit down talking about somebody to get some money or you need an investor, people want to know that you have a good handle on these things. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's where that coaching can be very helpful. That's where going through a class like Catch can be very helpful because they talk to you and teach you about not doing things like that, right?
How to manage your books or how to keep things separate, or
absolutely.
That's important. I mean, even for me, you know, I owned an Airbnb for a while, and that was something I had to learn because I didn't know. It's like, all right, I had this stuff mingled and stuff together, and eventually I was like, all right, I got to figure this out because I'm working and all of this money looks. So for tax returns, it all looked the same. And so I couldn't save money. I couldn't write things off. I was like, oh, I need an LLC. So let me go ahead and shift this over. And then that's kind of when I started to learn, like, oh, I just put it over here and then everything becomes separate. Now I'm good. So I can say, hey, this is this, that's that. And so it's definitely something that you got to learn by doing. But if you don't have most people don't even have enough cash flow. And that's, you know, people think, oh, I got this, but they don't even have the money coming in to really need 5 accounts. And that's kind of what blows me about, you know, just the business acumen and where we lack that information because not saying it hasn't been provided, it's out there, but a lot of us don't know where to go get it. Or a lot of us don't have those relationships. So I don't have a rich uncle that I can just go ask like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And so when you talk about that mentorship piece and how you ran into somebody or you know somebody took to you that gave you game, but then on the back end now you're saying some years later you actually provide a program that allows people to get education, educate themselves. So like I tell people all the time, if you look hard enough, the resources are out there. You just got to go do it. Because you saying, hey, $100, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know how to manage the basics of any business. Because people think that you go into this sector, there are differences, but the basics of business is still the same. It's translational through all businesses. Got to have accounts, got to manage your books, got to know your stuff. Got to do tax returns. All that stuff is the same. That doesn't change. AT&T does it, and so does Joe Blow down the street.
Absolutely.
Like people don't realize that, they got to file their LLCs or their S corps. And see, they got to do all the same stuff that we do. They just got a department of people that handle that. So but that's a scaling process. So until you have people that can do it for you, you gotta do it yourself.
I sum it up to people like this. I say, my grandfather was in the produce business, and my granddaddy, couldn't talk to you about profit margins and revenue growth and all of that kind of stuff, asset management and all of that kind of stuff. He couldn't tell you about that, but my grandfather knew this. If he bought his produce at this price and marked it up this amount, he was going to net a certain amount of money. And if he did that enough times and sold enough of it, he was going to net enough to be able to take care of things he needed to take care of. And he ultimately was able to buy, one property and another property and another property and so on and so forth. And he owned all of his produce. He owned his truck, the whole 9 yards. So it wasn't real sophisticated. All right.
Don't need to be.
But to your point, it's the same. Okay. You've got to generate revenue.
Yep.
You're going to have some costs and expenses associated with generating that revenue. Yep. If you manage those properly, you're going to make a profit. If you don't, you're going to have a loss. The equation is simple. Revenue, if my costs and expenses are above my revenue, I'm going to lose money. If my costs and expenses are below my revenue, I'm going to make money. Now, there are a lot of things on the front end to get that revenue piece that you've got to understand to help get you to where okay, out of every one of these things I sell, every service I provide, I know I'm making money because I'm accounting for this, this, and this, okay? So that's something where your accountant helps you. But in that catch class, we have a section on pricing. That's a seminar that I do with the county.
That's tough too. That's tough, man. Because
pricing, trying to figure out how to price,
especially if you've never done
difficult.
it. Like, man, I dropped a set of hoodies last winter. First thing, I'm like, man, what am I pricing this at? So I had to go do research. There was nobody to say, oh, you should charge this, you should charge. I had to figure it out, look at my market. Yep. And my process was simple. I'm like, okay, well, I know what audience I'm going for. I know who my followers are and all the people who support me. Cool. So from there, it's like, all right, what's too much? And then what's too little? What am I trying to make per hoodie? Also, what am I paying per hoodie?
Yep.
How much, so it's like, I'm starting thinking about my profit margins and how much am I making each sale? Because they got to get their money too if I'm drop shipping them. Yep. And so when you start looking at the actual details, I'm like, dang, like that pricing piece is, because then you outprice your market if you go too high and you take too little home. But you got to make a profit. So now as a business owner, it's like, all right, I understand why even today with inflation going up and just how things have changed since COVID. Yep. Restaurants up, produce, everything's up. Yep. Why? They got to make their profit. They still got bills to pay. And you get, the middle America gets squeezed out and they're just suffering because now they don't make anymore. Nope. But everything's gone up. Yep. And so, but they're mad at businesses for charging more. Like restaurants, I went to Wing House the other day, $17 for 10 wings. Yeah. Since when? Yeah. They start charging for chicken? Yeah. And so, but you get it because it's like, okay, that's just the economy right now. But people don't have that understanding of just basic business and how it works and why things go up and why things go down. You're going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul just to pay your bills. You just made a great point. So part of what I did as an analyst, so some of these things, eventually become intuitive to you. So for me, when you talk, I never forget, and I still remember my first boss telling me, get behind the numbers. And what she meant was, don't just write up your analysis. We can read the numbers. We need you to tell us why the numbers say what they say. So what you just said about chicken wings did go up, but there were things that drove that. Usually demand for product and supply goes back to the basics of economics, demand, supply. Yep. Okay. When demand is higher than the supply, you ration by what? Price. Price goes up to help allocate, right? So the other thing that happens is there are things in industries that happen. They had some problems with chickens. Chickens were dying. Okay. So what is that doing to the supply? It's restricting the supply. Each chicken has how many wings? Just two. Each chicken ain't got the two wings. Ain't got the two wings. Yep. All right. So you got to produce a whole lot of chickens to get wings. Yep. So that 10-piece chicken that you talk, that's 5 chickens that gave their lives to give you one plate. Your one plate of 10 wings. Yep. Okay. Now they're obviously going to sell the other pieces and everything too, right? But my point is, if there is something that like they've had bird flu just wipe out chicken farms at one point, what happens then? That means the supply is restricted. What's going to happen to the remaining chicken? The prices are going to go up because that chicken farmer
just wiped out a whole bunch of chickens that he thought he was going to be able to sell. Well, guess what happened? His costs to feed them, house them, take care of them was already locked in.
Yep.
He can't recoup that. He's got to recoup that from the remaining chickens. So guess what he has to do? He's got to adjust the price to cover. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, you can get mad at him. I don't like it either, by the way. But at the end of the day, I tell people, learn from the big companies.
Yes.
So now what needs to happen in your business if you own a restaurant? Okay, you used to sell that plate for $10. You've been selling it for $10 for the last 4 years. But what's been happening is you're struggling more because you're still serving roughly the same number of plates, but you're not making as much money.
Yep.
Okay? So now you're getting frustrated because you don't want to go up on your price because you don't want your customers to stop coming, right? Mm-hmm. So you try to hold a line on your pricing. But in the meantime, you're getting more frustrated because you're not making as much money. Mm-hmm. You start having cash flow problems, right? And so on and so forth. And it leads to other problems, you see? So we talk about and teach you about those things when we talk about pricing, you see? Right. And so when you going back to your point about why our businesses aren't growing, a lot of it is because, Joshua, we're not being exposed to right information. A whole lot of places can have a seminar and teach you how to start a business, how to go get a loan and stuff. The stuff I'm telling you, there ain't a whole lot of places able to tell you that, right? Okay, because you only know those things if you've gone in them. But here's the thing: I can also flip and tell you the other side of it, right? Like the banking side, how an investor or lender is looking at this and why. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's to me the difference. Yeah. You know, that's as I like to call that's the Albert Lee difference.
There you go.
That's the Albert Lee difference, man. So when I started doing my podcast, you know, you've been encouraging me to do this. When I started doing my podcast, these are the nuggets we're going to be dropping.
It's
on
important
people, man,
because people really don't know. Like, God forbid, man, if I didn't have somebody to call, I would have been, or I didn't have, or I wasn't resourceful. Yeah. You know, as an entrepreneur, you got to be resourceful. You got to have a way to figure things out. You got to have that mentality because if you don't have I'm going to figure it out. Or I know where to find things. I know how to find the answer. You don't have to know everything, but you know people who know the answers. Those mouths don't get fed. I don't care about looking stupid because I still want my answer. Right. So I'll look dumb for a second, but I'll make sure I get the information I need so I don't have to keep trying to figure this thing out by myself. Right. And so that's one of the things that as people go into business, because a lot of people start businesses. It's January. I mean, how many people filed an LLC this year? They want to do something. New year, new me. Mm-hmm. But when you get into month 6, month 7, and the business isn't as sexy, and it isn't, and you actually got to work, and it's like, okay, this is really it. And then you start to weed people out. Yep. People start quitting. You know how many podcasts started in 2019? I can't tell you how many podcasts started, but simply because I did not stop. My followers have grown. My reach has grown. I just didn't stop. Yeah. How many people out there were better than me, were more talented than me, but they quit? It's just no difference in business. You know, so when I look at it like that, and we talked about that grit, you have to bring that to the table. Because if you easily shaken or if you something go left, oh my God, you just freaking out. Hey, this entrepreneurship may not be for you. And people that's the other thing. I know it's just like, this notion of everybody's supposed to own a home. No, it's not. Please speak on that. It's not. I think true. Everybody's not supposed to own a home. No. Just like everybody's not supposed to own a business. Right. I do believe that everyone should have opportunity and access. Mm-hmm. Opportunity and access, which means if you want to and you're willing to do what it takes, then you have the opportunity, right? And you have access to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So if you want to own a home and you need the access to get a loan, yes, that should be equal all the way down the line. But we all know everybody's not built the same way. Some people don't want the headache. Yep. They don't want it. My son's like, look, I don't want the headache of keeping up a house. Okay, I like the fact that I can just call the maintenance people and they come take care of the problem. Yep. I don't have to spend Saturdays taking care of grass and all of this stuff. All I need to do is take care of the space where I actually live. Yep. Right? And it fits his lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not because he doesn't know what it takes to own a home. We had him go through the courses. He knew that there was down payment assistance out there if he qualified for it and things like that. But that's his decision. And there's nothing wrong with that. So and there are many, many people like that. And in certain parts of the country, like up north in New York, a lot of people don't own homes. Why? Because they're apartments. Right. Okay. The number of people that actually own single family residences in the city of New York is probably almost nil. That makes sense, yeah. Because that's the lifestyle of that. And so people grow up
living in apartments. Okay, so now what's more important up there? Rent control.
Yeah.
Something we don't have down here. But it's very vital up there when a good portion of your population, that's what they depend on, right? So all of these are things, man, that I hear people say, hey, everybody needs to have an LLC. Everybody needs to do this. No, they don't, man. I mean,
they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about, man. It's just, and that's the other thing. I very rarely, I don't like to say people are lying, or I don't, talk about industries that are taking people to the cleaners or anything like that, because I don't know everything. There's always a flip side to things that I may not know. Mm-hmm. But I always tell, if something sounds like it just doesn't make sense, if the dots can't be connected, no matter how you look at it, there's a reason the dots aren't. The reason the dots are not connected. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's probably because it's a bunch of bull.
Yeah.
Okay?
I agree with that.
And you've got to, and I don't care who's saying it and how great they look saying it. It just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Because there's the only shortcut in life is wisdom. That's I say it all the time. And when it comes to running a business, building a business, unless you got somebody handing you a bunch of money to scale your stuff and to put all these different systems in place, you got to work. You got to work. It's come down to working. Yeah. If you gonna work, you got to work. Yeah. So if you're scared of work, then you won't be able to own a business. Right. You'll own one, but you ain't gonna make no money. Right. Anybody can have a business, but when it comes to actually profit and all of that stuff, man, you don't, like you said, you had to be at that place at 5:30 in the morning. And you had to be there after those employees left. Absolutely. And you got phone calls from said employees about stuff that had nothing to do with you. On top of that, you got kids, you got family, you got wife, you got school, everything. You got your own personal goals. And so people don't account for all of that stuff when you talk about business, because leadership, man, when you start dealing with folk and you got to deal with people, that's when it gets challenging, because you came to the table, you know what you got, but everybody don't have the same mentality that Albert Lee has.
Well, I would also tell you too, the glamour that people think come along with it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, first off, I had a very active social life before I got involved in that, because as a banker, you're going to this event, that event, and so on and so forth. All of that was over, okay? Because your focus has to be here. One, the stores opened at 7, closed at 7. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So that's all day.
I've got to be available. All right. And then that means I had to be at each of the stores at 7 o'clock to pick up the clothes and pick up the money. I made deposits and they had to leave the deposits ready for me. And I had to go through and do what? Balance because you got to make sure the folks handling your money, man, handling your money. We dealt with, our business was mostly cash. Okay. So people going to steal. Okay. No doubt. You got to find time to try to do inventory. Make sure all the clothes that you all brought in are either on the rack or have the ones that have gone out the door have been paid for, okay? You got to make sure your employees aren't bringing clothes in, sending them down to the plant to be clean, and then taking them home for themselves, right? All of these things is part of your responsibility. Yeah. Your customers are doing their part.
I can tell you've been through some frustrating times.
Man, I tell people all the time, I would have probably stayed in that business if it hadn't been for the employees. But at the same time, I couldn't survive without employees. Right. But it can be very, very frustrating, because, you're doing what you need to do to try to make payroll and make sure that they get what they're supposed to get for showing up. But, you don't always get people's best effort. And so, and that's just part of it. They're not going to care about your business the way you do. You count yourself very blessed if you have employees that will put that business on their back, even one, and carry it, man, in spite of what you do or don't do. Okay, you only need like 3 people. You only need like 3. You get that, man. You good. Army. People think you need an army of people to really run it. You don't. No. You just need a small team. Because everybody, it's not their dream. Nope. Like that's yours. So you can't expect people to adopt your dream when they making minimum wage, or they're not making what the business owner makes, but they ain't putting the time in and he's putting in. Nor taking the risk. See, that's the thing is, guess who the landlord's going to come look for when it's time to pay the rent? You. First thing you're going to do as employees say, well, I don't own the place. You're going to talk to him. Say my job. You understand? Yep. See, and when I close, if I shut down, you're going to go to another dry cleaning place. You're going to go to another store and get a job. Mm-hmm. Okay? The owner is the one to deal with the fallout. Now, at the same time, that's the way it should be if the owner is at fault for causing the problems in the first place, okay? Right. But things happen. One of the things I've done, man, is the older you get, the older I've gotten, I won't make this as a blanket statement, but the older I've gotten, the less judgmental I've become. Okay, the less judgmental I've become, because you live long enough to see more and more things. Okay, you also get to see the things you did that you shouldn't have done. You get a chance to see the things that you should have done that you did not do. Yeah. And so
grace, man.
Everybody falls short, and you just have to recognize that. So the biggest thing, and anybody that knows me knows this, man. I tell people, look, unintentional ignorance, no problem.
Right.
Willful ignorance, I absolutely abhor. And I don't deal with it. I don't deal with people who willfully remain ignorant. Okay. In the face of being told good information, being told the right things to do, you still choose to ignore it. That's fine. I'm not finna force you to do anything.
Right.
But don't expect my help. Okay. Not if it's willful ignorance. If it's unintentional ignorance, that's a different ballgame. Because you know what? That person's coachable. And that's the first word for catch. It's coachable.
Yes.
And the reason that was the first word, because if you are not coachable, we already got a problem. Yeah. That means you're not willing. You don't feel you need to learn.
That's most people, though.
That's most people.
And even just dealing with people, the lack of coachability. Like when we talk about being coachable, you got to be humble.
Yep.
Coachable means you got to humble yourself. Business will teach you humility, because you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. There's nowhere around. You're gonna lose. And in those experiences, if you aren't coachable, you're just gonna continue to lose, and there's no learning behind that.
Yep.
So if you go into the aspect of running a business or starting something with, okay, I know I got a learning curve here. Somebody got to teach me, and I'm gonna make mistakes. You don't have that mentality, and you just think you know it all. You're not going to do well. Yeah. And you got some hard-headed folks out here, man. You got some hard-headed folks. I want to shift and ask you a question. Sure. And then I'll let you get out. I know you got to go make some more money.
Yeah. Now, got to get something in by 5.
Okay. We'll be done before then. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the lending requirements, if you can talk about that? Just some, simple things that certain business owners should do to be ready to receive financing, or even, to even go down that path?
I would tell you, really, a lot of it is on a case-by-case basis, because some people are more prepared than they think they are. Others are less prepared than they think they are. So there's no one-size-fits-all. There's some basic things. Number one, if your business is already losing money, okay, and if you can't tell me whether your business is making money or losing money, we already got a problem. Mm-hmm. But if your business is already losing money, it puts you at a deficit to be able to get a loan. Let me just say that. Because that's usually the time when people come and want to get a loan. They're having cash flow difficulties, or the business is losing money. The reason that is a difficult time to get a loan is because your business is already demonstrating it does not have sufficient cash flow to cover its current operating costs. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a loan may put a Band-Aid on the situation, because it's going to give you access to some money. But if you've not fixed the fundamental reason causing the cash flow shortfall and the loss, all it's going to do is, when that money runs out, now you got an additional payment. And what I've got is a problem loan, which is what we don't want in our business, which is what a bank does not want. We don't want to have to foreclose. We don't want to have to offset against the collateral. All of that is headache. It's time consuming. It costs money. We want our money. Okay. Right. So that is one basic thing I would tell you. Credit. There's no reason for you to be ignorant about your credit today. Mm-hmm. If you can't talk about your credit and tell me what your credit score is, or tell me what credit problems you have, or if I pull the credit report, what it's going to say, then you've not adequately prepared. There's so many ways to access your credit information now for free. Mm-hmm. Okay. In order for you to know your credit situation. Yes. If you have a strong credit score, that helps. But if you don't have a great credit score, but you can talk about some mitigating things for why your credit score is not as strong as it should be, we can still have that conversation. We don't have a hard and fast credit rule at BBIC. Some of our banking partners may, okay, and we can deal with those as well, but we don't have a hard and fast credit score. And then other things is, we don't make unsecured loans. Okay. Yeah, we don't do unsecured loans. We don't make personal loans. We loan money to businesses. Okay. So the loan would have to be made to you in the name of your business, and we don't do unsecured loans. We're going to have to secure ourselves some way.
What's an unsecured loan for those who don't?
Unsecured loan is where there's no collateral backing the loan. There's literally, you come, you sign, there's nothing securing the loan. We don't make those types of loans, okay? So, in a case like that, you know, if you need that kind of loan, you might be better off trying to find a credit card, all right? But in most cases, people have already tried to get a credit card and they've been unsuccessful, all right? The other thing is you're going to pay for that because unsecured money is expensive money. So you're going to end up paying a lot more.
That interest, boy, that interest.
But it's all fair because it's based on the risk.
Right.
Okay. If I'm unsecured, that means I have a higher level of risk because if you don't pay me back, I don't have anything else to offset. Right. So the way you offset that is you increase the interest rate. So those are some basic things, man. But each situation is kind of different. And we try to sit down with folks, talk them through the situation, find out where they are, and help them kind of isolate on where we think, some potential issues might be, or whether we think this is a deal that we think is doable. We're not in the business of taking applications for the application fee. All right, there is an application fee. I think it's $200 or $250 now. We're not in the business of just taking applications to get the application fee. First thing we're going to look to see is, does this deal make sense? Do we think we can do the deal? If we know we can't do the deal, we're not going to even take your application.
Right. That makes sense. So
we're not going to take the application. No. Right. And see, there are a lot of places online where, they'll let you go ahead and complete it and you'll pay your fee and they'll evaluate it. And then if you don't get the loan, you've already surrendered the fee. There's nothing wrong with that because they've already went through that process. Because when I do accept the application, we're going to have to run a credit report. We have to pay to have access to credit reports, right? There's going to be time going through, getting your information, doing our due diligence. I got to pay somebody to do that. So there's a cost incurred for that process. So even that $250, that's not like money just going to the bank and we just making money off of you. There's time involved.
I'm glad you're explaining that because people play this victim role a lot, man. Oh, they against me. They don't want to help me out. No.
Come have a discussion with me.
There you go.
Because I don't have a problem telling you that. Okay, I really don't have a problem. If you want to play the victim with me, it's not going to be a very good conversation because I don't have time for it. Okay, I just don't. We're looking for people who want to make something happen, who are willing to make something happen, and who are willing to do what it takes to get to where they need to go. And even then, we may not be able to help you.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't say and unfortunately in the lending business, you say no more than you say yes. It's just the nature of the business. You're going to say no a lot more than you're going to say yes. And you have to go through a number of deals to try to find a yes. But if a person does not engage in the process, they'll never know. If you walk away more informed about your situation and what you need to do in order to make your quest for capital successful, then to me, that's a win for you.
It is.
That's a win for you.
Yeah, everybody got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. So that's the way, that's kind of the way what we do here, man. It's there are so many more aspects to it. We can talk for days about these things because, in my years of being involved in finance and many other things I've been involved in, you learn and you have stories and you have things you can relate to people that will be beneficial to them in their quest to start their business and or run their business or secure capital. And so, like I said, man, they got to look forward to it.
Oh yeah,
they got to look forward to it, man. So when we gonna set up our podcasting, man? We're gonna start going in together. This right here. The only way you can use this content. Okay, you got to use it for BBIC's benefit.
I'll let you get the whole. I'll see the whole file.
You got to use it for BBIC's benefit, and then me and you got to talk about how we gonna come together and educate people on something. Because you're working in a good space too with that personal finance and stuff like that. Yeah. Those things go together,
hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. We analyze your personal situation as well as your business, and the same thing at the bank. Because the two go together.
Because if you aren't managing your personal finances, why would they give you a business loan?
It's going to manifest itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Because then on the top of that, you say you don't do secure loan or unsecured loans, but people don't realize if your credit score is good enough, you can back a loan with your credit score.
Absolutely.
You can do things like that because all the bank wants to know is, are you responsible?
Yep.
That's all they care about. Are you a responsible enough person to pay me back?
Pay me back.
That's all you want. I want my money.
Yep.
Just like the landlord want his rent.
Yep.
Simple.
That's
If you don't pay your rent, landlord calling.
Yep.
If you don't pay the bank, they're going to blow your phone. They're going to find a way to get you. And now they changed the law, so now they're going to text you. They're going to blow your phone up.
The most profitable customers one we never have contact with after we done made the loan.
Yep.
Because there's no cost in having to call that person and chase them down and things like that, right? You do your outreach to keep relationship,
right?
Okay,
but you ain't
especially at the bank. But I'm not having to chase you. Right. We're having good conversations when I call. You know, I'm asking, hey, Josh, how you doing, man? Things are going great. Why not come by and let's go grab lunch? When you owe me money, you're not accepting my calls. I'm having to come scout you down at your place of business, and you giving me all kind of excuses as to why you ain't made the payments, and then you're lying to me on the spot, telling me when you're going to make the payment, even though you know you don't have the money. Lying. You already know they're lying, man. I mean, you know, when you've been in this game, you see it. You know, you see it, and it's not a matter of got you. The thing is, people want to help you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You just need to give them the tools to help
to make it happen. I got a couple more questions for you. It's called the Econix 10. Ain't got nothing to do with business. So we're going to get you out of here.
Well, we got to talk about the Lakeland event.
We do. I'm going to give you, actually, go ahead and tell everybody about your event next, it's the 19th.
It's the 19th. Yeah. So January 19th, we're going to be hosting we call it meet and greet. It's not really a mixer, but you can call it a mixer, but it's going to be a meet and greet over in Lakeland at the Well, which is over on Parker Street. Lakeland, a unique venue owned by African-American couple. And it's a beautiful venue that the city helped them fund and build and so on and so forth. And so we're one of the organizations that engage with them and do services over there. So we gave them $25,000 as part of our partnership with them. Okay. I don't know if they tell people about that too much, but yeah, we gave them $25,000. We didn't loan it to them. We gave them $25,000, almost like an investment in their business. But in exchange, it was in exchange for what we get, you know, using the venue, basically for rent and things like that. So it's going to be exciting. We hope to have a number of the folks there that run the city of Lakeland. We're operating in 2 of their CRAs, the downtown and midtown CRA, where the city has contracted with BBIC to provide our services over there. So James Randolph has been doing a super job. James owned Carolina Consulting. He's also a former board member here. He's been working over in Lakeland now for the past half year, getting our feet wet over there. And we've done some good things with some clients over there. So this will be a great opportunity for us to come together over in Lakeland. If you're in Tampa and you happen to want to drive over to Lakeland? Lakeland is happening, man. It's beautiful. So come on over. It's going to be, I think we're going to start at 6 o'clock and go to about 8 o'clock. It's not going to be a real big program. I'll get up there, say a few words, talk about BBIC. If they have some of the dignitaries there, we'll let them talk and things like that. So, you know, I told them, I said, look, if we get 50 to 100 people, I'm good. You know, normally at our mixes and stuff, you know, when we do those with Andrew with the CEO experience and the CEO mixes, we get 200, 250, 300 people in those events. This one is not targeted to be that. But if people want to come out, find a little bit more about what we got going on in Lakeland and what's happening in the city of Lakeland, then join us over at the Well over on Parker Street in Lakeland on January 19th at 6 o'clock. And we'll have some finger foods. Not going to have the full meals like we normally do, but we'll have some finger food. And people can come over there and meet each other and meet us.
There we go. All right. These are quick questions, quick hitters. First one, what would you title?
Oh, by the way, it doesn't cost you anything. There you go. Okay, we're offering that meet and greet.
It's free information, y'all.
Yeah.
Don't complain about not having an opportunity if you don't show up. Half the thing is showing up.
Yes.
All right. So first one, real quick. What would you title this chapter in your life?
This chapter in my life? Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I guess, you know what? I would title it What I've Learned.
I like that.
I would title it What I've Learned.
I like that. That.
Because most of the things I was sharing with you are things I've learned.
Right.
Yeah. What I've
experience.
Learned. Yep.
Next question. What superpower would you have?
Healing.
I haven't heard that one yet. That's a good one. You know what? That's the first one that I've heard that helps people. Yeah. Everything else was self-serving because I was invisible. I want to be invisible or whatever. Yeah. Or teleportation. That helps me, not nobody else. That's awesome. What would you invest in right now if money was not an issue?
Depending on what it is, because money may or may not be an issue, depending on what it is. That's right. True. I tell you what I'm real fascinated about. I don't know much about it, but I saw some numbers on it a while back. and saw some stats on it about 2 weeks ago on television about artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And they said that they expect in the next 7 years, AI will grow 13 times what it's generating in revenues now. 13 times.
It's gone.
So me and a buddy of mine, we have this thing that we say, you want to be where the puck is going. You know, in hockey, they play with a puck. Okay. Well, if you get to where the puck was, it's too late. Yep. And that's usually in the net, right? Yeah. You want to try to be where the puck is going. Mm-hmm. So the puck is moving in that direction. And one of the things I've learned about technology, as much as we may be afraid of them, as much as we may not want to embrace them, once they've started moving in a direction with something, very rarely does it go backwards. Yep. Okay. Yep. So we just go back and think about electric cars when they first came out with them. People are like, well, I don't know about that. Yep. That train was already leaving the station. Yep. AI has already left the station. It is going to do nothing but get deeper in our lives, right? So when you're looking at opportunities, learning more about how that can be used and how you can potentially profit from it. And yes, I would say crypto, I don't know enough about it to tell people or advise people to invest in it. And I'm not currently investing in it. Mm-hmm. But I would say that's an area that I think is going to continue to be something we want to look at. Yeah. Yep.
Not going anywhere. As much as they knock it, it ain't going anywhere. Yeah. They just passed anyway. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. 5 dinner guests. I mean, that's my last one. 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. Who's coming to your dinner?
Oh, wow. Man. I don't know. I literally have that one is a hard one. Because what will happen is I'll put people on the list and they're going to get knocked. You know, they are going to get knocked. I would say this. I would say Jesus, right? I'd want to have Jesus at that dinner. I'd want to have Muhammad at the dinner. Okay. Yeah. I'd want to have Abraham at the dinner. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the reason I say that is when we look at the impact those three have had, you know, it encompasses a whole lot, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I think if we were looking at realistically, a lot of people may not. A lot of Black people may not want to admit this, but I probably have at least one of the quote unquote forefathers of this country, whether that would be George Washington or Jefferson or one of them, just to get inside their head as to where they were thinking. They started, whether we agree with everything America is or not. Yeah, this thing is a machine, man.
Yes, it is.
It has been a machine as a country, unlike almost anything we've ever seen in history. So to think in terms that they were at the beginning of starting something that has lasted this long.
I think about that too. That Declaration of Independence. All of that. They wrote that however many years ago. Yeah. And you think about like, wow, they thought about all of this in our Constitution. 240 something, how many years later. Yep. And it's like, wow, like it's only been amended, 27 times?
It is an enduring document, as jacked up as it is.
Yes.
Now, I thought the foundation was faulty. Mm-hmm. And I think if they could go back and redo it, which is one of the reasons I want to have a discussion, since they would be having dinner with me now.
Right.
We bring them up to speed and say, now, what would you have changed going back then? I think that would be a fascinating question. So, it would be sort of around that. And why? Because those are things that are at the bedrock. And, and so I'm not thinking in terms of just color, because much of who we are have been impacted by those very people I'm talking about.
Yes.
See?
Yes.
And so, of course, some of the great kings of Africa, we'd have to go back and talk to them. So I don't know. I know a lot of people, recent people. I had the pleasure of meeting Barack when I got the pictures and the receipts to show for it. So he's a fascinating guy. It'd be fun. Yeah. He's a fun person. And Michelle is too. She's a very cool person. But Martin Luther King, I'd have to get in his head. Yeah. To kind of put me where you were at that time. We see you now. Let's go back and look at you then, right? So it would be a very fun discussion.
It'd be a lively conversation.
It'll be a very deep conversation.
Jesus be in there. What you say?
Yeah. It would be interesting to see what his thoughts about where of course, he could see this all coming, but it would be interesting to get his thoughts about it. You know, his feedback, being able to talk to him. Yes, we can talk to him in spirit now, but I'm talking about sitting across the table from him.
Yeah.
You know,
that's all I got for you. So thank you so much. Last thing, tell everybody where they can contact you. So that if they want to get involved in the Catch program, or they're looking to get financing for their business, how can they reach you?
So I would encourage you to reach out to us at info@tampabayBBIC.com. It's going to ask you some basic information, your name of your business, things like that. And then you have a section under there where you can write some comments, what it is you're looking for. And then we can engage with you like that. So it's info@tampabayBBIC.com. If there's information you want on something, then we can reach out to you and engage you. One of the guys that I couldn't work without is Brent Everett. He's more than likely the person that you'll talk to at some point, especially if you decide to move forward with applying for a loan. And Brent gets those info at BBIC. I get them, but I don't get a chance to look at them as often. And then if it's something that I need to respond to, Brent will get it over to me. But that's the way you can contact us. If you want to know a little bit more about me, you can go to the website and see the bio. Probably needs to be updated a little bit, but nevertheless, it'll give you some idea about my background. There's a whole lot of things I spare you in that bio. But yeah, that's the way they can engage with us. And our Facebook page in that purge that Meta had a couple years ago, our page, unbeknownst to us, got swept. Okay. And so I'm in the process of setting up a new Facebook page as well. I told you I'm not on social media, but I had to set up a Facebook page for myself so I can have, be able to attach it to my business. And so I got somebody that's going to be working on that. So hopefully we'll have that back up and engaging, and people will be able to see more things like this, clips and stuff like that.
So, make it happen. Well, thank you so much. Absolutely, that is all I have for today. Y'all, Albert Lee, and that is all we got today. Y'all have a good one. Peace.